This is Center Stage, putting your firm in the spotlight by highlighting business owners and other industry experts to help take your firm to the next level. Hey everyone, and welcome to Center Stage. I'm your host, John Henson, and this week we're talking about something that I personally would love to do more of, which is weird for me to say out loud because I'm very introverted and I tend to keep to myself, but I really do enjoy public speaking and I would love to do more of it. And just broadly speaking, especially here at Spotlight Branding, we talk a lot about how important it is, especially nowadays, to show off your expertise, and getting booked to speak and finding different speaking engagements that you can be a part of is the perfect way to accomplish that. And so to help us walk through just kind of the strategy of getting booked and provide some tips on how to be a better speaker, I have brought in consultant and booking specialist Anastasia Lipske to help us out. Anastasia, thanks for joining us.
You bet. It's a pleasure to be here. I didn't know you were an introvert, so that's kind of interesting. So you covered that up well. The interesting thing is I'm an extrovert, and I would rather chew on glass than to do public speaking. So
that's weird how all that works out.
Right? I know. And I'm good at it. And I do it because I need to. I do it. Well, for one thing, how can I say do as I say, not as I do? So if I'm going to be telling the world they should be using speaking as a marketing tool, it doesn't really bode well with the fact that I'm not out there myself. So there is that. But the truth is, it's a brilliant marketing tool, in particular because I closely relate it to sample advertising that we all learn in our marketing classes. Sample advertising is primo because then people get a taste for the product. Well, they're getting a taste for who you are, what you're about, and a certain percentage of people are going to resonate with you or not. And if they do resonate with you, they're going to want to go further with you. And it's not like you have to use the stage to pitch your stuff. You're just sharing your expertise. You're sharing your passion. And if you go about it, from the viewpoint of blessing the audience, how can I make it worth their while to have sat here and listened to me all day? If you do it that way, you're going to get clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, it's funny because, like you mentioned, you're an extrovert. I'm an introvert. I'm also I tend to be a very anxious person, and public speaking is like one of the biggest triggers of anxiety there is, but I don't know.
Totally on the top of the list.
Yeah. I don't know. I've kind of developed kind of this stage persona where I think I'm a completely different person, or maybe I'm the person that I truly want to be, versus the rest of the time when I kind of just keep to myself and stay quiet. But all kinds of stuff that we can jump into today. But before we do that, just kind of briefly introduce yourself, kind of what is your background, expand a little bit more on why we have you on today.
Awesome. Thank you, John. I so appreciate that. So I haven't always been a speaker's agent. I actually worked in tourism most of my life for 30 years, and most of it being luxury tourism. Working with international ground operators was kind of my forte, but I had a lot of event management experience. And then in the crash of 2008, that was the first time in my life I was actually unemployed because tourism was hit so hard. During that time period, I started to jump into social media, in particular Twitter. So I was there towards the latter part of 2008, early 2009, really engrossed myself in it. I mean, I did have time, despite the literally over 1,000 resumes I sent out in a 2-year period. So that was a brutal time, but it was a time to learn. And I learned a lot about social media. That led me into ultimately working for a social media conference, helping them out. Then it's a whole long story as to how I got my first client, but I never intended to do this. So I accidentally ended up working because of a tweet up, by the way, on Twitter that led me to a sustainable farm with my family. And this woman who opened this brand new farm decided to hire one of my daughters and her friend who came to the family tweet up because she was done with her boys working on the farm. So that started this whole thing where ultimately I ended up doing some work for her. Then I wasn't working for her. And then she comes to me and says, my business coach told me that I should be using speaking to grow my business. I don't know where to begin. I don't have the connections because she was new into the town I was living in at the time. And she said, I'll pay you for every gig you can line up for me. And I was like, I've never done that before, but I'll do anything once, twice if I like it. So why not? Besides, I'm unemployed. So
Right.
if God drops something on your lap, you better by golly move forward with it. So I just started doing it and I was good at it. When I worked for that social media conference, only for like 6 months, I vetted speakers. So I was on the other end. I knew what I was looking for. So that helped me having this connection with this woman in the sustainable farm. She's the one that got me to do it. And then because it was her number one marketing tool, all she did was educate people about sustainable agriculture. And then she would invite them to take a tour of her farm for free. People would come out. They'd be blown away by her operation and they would become CSA members, getting a weekly box of meats and vegetables. So it was brilliant. And she started telling everybody about it, saying, y'all got to do this. And every single client has come to me through word of mouth, everyone. And that's where this was started. I will say it's very different than a traditional speaker agency because in the world of public speaking,
Mhm.
people get paid, right?
Right.
So they get paid to speak. They have a speaker agent, kind of like a talent agent, gets that speaking gig for them, speaking engagement, and they will take an honorarium or 20 to 30% of that honorarium for themselves.
Yeah.
Well, I specialize in platform marketing speakers. These are people who they're not looking to get paid to speak. They're using it as a marketing tool. So they are paying me to book them to speak for free, pulling it out of their marketing budget because it works. In
Mm.
particular, if you really utilize every talk that you do. And that's the key part is like there's so much more than just doing it. It's like, what do you do with it after you've done the talk in order to really bring in that business? The credibility happens automatically when you are doing that presentation. But if you really want to build influence, you've got to connect with people and go further with them.
Yeah.
So,
Totally agree. And there was a little dog wag that we talked about before we
yes,
came
yes,
on,
I know.
but no, that's totally fine. So I guess broadly speaking here, because I think when people think about speaking and getting up in front of people and sharing their expertise, we kind of just assume that you're talking about getting up on stage somewhere. But
Right.
I think it's a lot broader than that. So what
Oh, yeah.
are some other kinds of activities that could be considered as a speaking opportunity that maybe you've even booked?
Right, right. Well, number one is getting booked on podcasts,
Yes.
as you will well know, right? Because
Yes.
you are a podcast host and you are on other people's podcasts. So podcast bookings, great way, evergreen. What's nice is that they've always were virtual. They always will be virtual. So
Yeah.
that's a huge benefit. And you have that whole SEO factor that's in there because your name and speaker, because when you're getting booked as a podcast guest, you want to make sure that you're saying, I am a speaker. So that gets attached to your name and it's out there on the ethernet for people to find you in the rankings, right? A lot of other places that people don't even think about is just the fact that they have opportunities to speak within their own networks, their networking meetings. A lot of times people don't even offer themselves for these meetings that bring in guest speakers. And I don't know
Yeah.
if they just don't think that they have any value, or because nobody wants to hear from them because they've been meeting for the past 14 years every Wednesday morning and nobody's ever asked. I don't know.
Right.
So a person needs to offer themselves. And there's within social media, there's opportunities. Video. I'm a huge proponent of video. I personally also am a huge believer in email videos.
Mhm.
So anyone who wants to or is a speaker, if you want to get noticed, send video emails. They are so powerful because nobody's doing it. And I don't know why. I am an anomaly. I even do LinkedIn messages. In fact, I think John, you've probably seen some
Yep.
of mine. Like I use BombBomb. That's my kind of
Yep.
go-to. I've been using them for 7 years.
Yeah.
Amazing, easy ability. So when you are reaching out and you're offering yourself to someone and they can see you speak, right off the bat, they don't need the speaker reel because they're going to connect with you. In particular, by the way, if you're looking at the webcam, which I'm just going to toss it out here really quick because I'm on Racket, the
Mm.
Racket app, and we
Yeah.
just were having this dialogue, a few of us, about how to make eye connection when you are visibly on a virtual meeting call, doing a presentation, etc. And so many people tend to, like I would be speaking to you because I am speaking to you and
Right.
your audience that I can't see, but there's a big difference between me looking at you right now versus me looking at the camera.
Right.
And even in a Zoom meeting, if you want people to feel like you are engaged and the person who's speaking is in that lower left corner, you take them and you put them right under your webcam. So at least if you're looking at them, you're still closer than if you're looking down here the whole time.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
anyway, sorry, this is what I do. I have a popcorn brain, by the way, and I will open one window and another sometimes, but I thought I would toss that out there because that's a recent discussion that we've been having. But those are
Yeah.
some of the key ways that I can think of, is just being out there, do video emails, do video messages when you make your connections on LinkedIn. You could do it on Facebook, in Facebook Messenger, in your
Yeah.
social media, do videos.
Yeah, 100%. And, even if you aren't able to start out speaking for other organizations or getting on podcasts, do it yourself. Host, a lunch and learn, or host a workshop at your firm, whether
Absolutely.
it's monthly or quarterly, and just get the ball rolling on stuff like that, and get people to come to you first. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I heard this guy speak. He does an event. I think he would be a great speaker for one of our events later down the road. And so you can kind of grow out that way too. And I mean, that's kind of what we've done here, where we have, these webinar series that we do the podcast, obviously, and then we will, in turn, that obviously brings up more opportunities. People say, hey, come on our podcast. Hey, do this webinar with us. Hey, come speak, at this conference or whatever. And so there's so many different ways that you can get into it. And there's a lot of opportunities out there to do it. So, we've kind of, I think, we talked about the broad overarching reason why you should be seeking out these opportunities. It's to show off that expertise. But,
Right.
What kinds of direct benefits have you seen? I mean, you obviously gave that example earlier from the farm owner and how she was able to grow her business that way. What
Right.
else have you seen in terms of benefits from people who do a lot of speaking?
Well, so in addition to getting clients,
Yeah.
they are building visibility. So the SEO factor is huge. And there's really not even a way for me to track it on a general level, but each individual can have a better sense of it when they start doing some analytics every time that they are out there speaking. You want to also point people in different directions, a lot of backlink opportunities. In particular, if you set up a speaker page on your site and you are continually backlinking to that, in every talk that you do, in the chats that you do, because right now most of it is virtual, right?
Right.
If you are doing podcast guesting, get that into the show notes, all of those types of things, not to mention the fact that you want to, every time you're going to do a talk or be a guest on a podcast, you want to be sharing about that. Which reminds me, by the way, real quick before I forget, may I take a screen print of us and share this?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So we're going to do this. And hopefully that took. And then I will share about that. So when I share about this exciting opportunity to have been hosted by you, John, I'm going to have backlinks not only to my site, because I want people to know that they can book me to speak or be on podcasts. And then I, of course, am going to tag you and all that kind of groovy stuff because we want to spread the love. But these are opportunities that we have to come back. So that's a huge other part of the benefits of speaking and podcast guesting to grow your business. Tara, my speaker, my sustainable farmer, is the only one of my clients that has given me tactical analytics because she studied it and exactly how much she did in that 6-month period. The others, I don't get that feedback, but here's the thing. They've been paying me to book them for years.
Right.
So something must be working, because if they're looking at that ROI, does it make sense? Clearly it does. So there's enough value for them to continue to do that.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes there's just some intangible ROI that just comes from it. And then there are ways you can combat that and make it a little bit more tangible. To your point, having a dedicated URL that you're pointing people to.
Right.
Some people do like a text message opt-in sort of thing, like text this word to this number. That's a big one as well. But yeah, and that's, we talk a lot about, understanding your metrics and really understanding where your leads and referrals and everything are coming to. And that's a great example of it. Going out and speaking, you may not immediately connect those dots about, well, how can I figure out what the ROI from this is, unless someone tells me, oh, I heard you speak, so now I want to hire you. This is how you do it. You have that dedicated URL or some other way to opt in and stuff like that. And so that's a really good point. What are some good, ways that, outside of maybe hiring, someone like you who can do it for them, what are some ways that people can get these sorts of speaking engagements, whether it's being a podcast guest or going to like a Chamber of Commerce meeting or something like that?
First thing I recommend that you do is you start with the people you know, primarily your clients. So you go to your clients and you say, hey, I want to get booked to speak, to share about my expertise. What groups and organizations are you a member of that brings in guest speakers that you might be able to refer me to? What podcasts do you currently listen to and if you have a connection to a podcast host, even better. But if not, just tell me what those podcasts are, because I value you as a client and I want to go where my potential clients are. Will you help me out with this? So you start with where they are, because on average, your clients are exactly what you're looking for. You want more of them. You want to duplicate them, right? So you go to where they are. So once you've done that, then the next thing is you go to all the people you know, friends, family, LinkedIn connections, social media. You share it with everybody. And if you want to say something like, I just heard a speaker branding consultant tell me that I need to ask everyone I know if they know of any groups and organizations I can get in front of and or podcasts that I can, consider being a guest on. Can you give me some leads? Let me know. Because sometimes it kind of softens it when someone is saying, so-and-so told me. It's different than just going out and saying, hey, I would like to do this. Some people prefer to say, this was recommended to me. And I don't know why that is, but I think it's just human nature. So you can use my name, whatever, just say, someone told me I need to do this, but do it, because that's where you're going to get the most leads. Then there's, of course, the good old Google word and just researching things. Podcast bookings, it's a little bit easier because there's a lot of directories that you can access. Listen notes, I love that. That's my favorite one. Speaking, not so much, but there are services that you can go to for leads of speaking engagements and groups that book with them. In fact, in my resources page, I link to Speakertunity. That is a reference that I have used, a resource that I've used. There are others that are out there, but really the most organic way to find the right places is to start with who you know, primarily your clients, and then go from there. And then you start doing the research after that. Coming up in mind, keeping in mind that you want to use your keywords. There is no point in speaking to a group or organization that you're not in alignment with. That's not going to serve them, and it's not going to serve you. So you want to make sure whatever that group or organization is, that they have people in that audience that are going to be listening or, hearing to, oh God, I can't speak. Boy, my speaker agent. They're the ones that are going to have that information. And by the way, something just popped in my mind. Now, this is unfortunately not really going to be very helpful for the men, but there is an amazing resource that I've come across called Innovation Women. It's just innovationwomen.com. I'm a member myself. It's incredible for women. It's an online visibility platform. Incredible resource. They do accept some men, I don't know what the parameters are as to why they accept some, or maybe some men get in there and they're just kind of like, nah, not really my thing. But there's a lot of leads for conferences and annual meetings in that resource. So I do highly recommend that.
Awesome. Yeah, just to go back through a couple of the things you said. I mean, we actually had a big conversation in our leadership meeting this week, just around just asking, and a lot of times I think there's this hesitation from lawyers where it's like, well, I don't want to annoy people, or I don't want to burden people. You don't know how they're going to respond. Just ask. Just ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
The overwhelming likelihood is that your fear is not what's going to be the likely outcome. Just ask. All right.
Right.
The other thing is just, kind of piggybacking on the opportunity around asking is you're tapping into their network.
Yep.
Most of our audience is lawyers. You don't know who, for like estate planning attorneys, for example, how many churches in your network you could go and speak at, business lawyers, how many of your clients are in these, different business or networking groups that meet on a regular basis that you could go and talk to. So, there's so many opportunities out there, and I mean, even in our example, I think you and I met in this podcasting networking
Yeah. The
group.
video socials. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. We met in that group, and there's so many other shows out there that I wasn't aware
Yep.
of that have these audiences. And now we're all able to, kind of join each other, share our expertise around. And it's a great way to get out there and a great way to,
Yeah.
expand your reach on that. So the last kind of question I have for you, you get booked. All right. You have some speaking opportunities lined up. What are some tips that you have, and maybe some tips that you give to your clients for just being engaging? You don't have to be like the most entertaining, but you don't want to be boring. What kind of tips do you
Right.
have for being a
Right.
really engaging speaker?
Well, first and foremost, I already kind of touched on the eye contact and how
Mhm.
important that is, which anybody who's listening to this as opposed to watching this is going to be hard for you to see the demonstration, but that truly makes a huge difference when you are speaking, and because the world's virtual right now, but when you're speaking in person, which is happening again, it's slowly building up and you'll be doing more of that in the future. That
Yeah.
eye contact is going to be very, very important. Another thing that I highly recommend is that you, in the virtual format, doesn't make it so easy with this, a little bit depending upon the group, but getting there early enough to meet people. So I
Yeah.
always recommend that speakers show up early and meet as many people as they can, and remember at least 3 people.
Mm.
3 people. Make that your key point. 3 people. And remember something about them, because if in your presentation you can say anything and call that person out by name,
Mm.
like, you're speaking about whatever it is, and then you're saying, John and I were just talking about the Super Bowl game, that happened this weekend, and what I saw in that game, blah 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 blah. When you do that, that first off pulls everybody's attention in. First off, you got the attention of John, right? But you
Right.
also have the attention of everybody else who just heard their buddy John's name pulled out. So then they're like in this space of, oh, she actually cared enough to remember his name. She
Yeah.
cared enough to remember something about a conversation they had about the Super Bowl. And that is powerful. Remember, people buy from people they know, like, and trust. That is like a huge on the trustometer, or whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it, once you start doing things like that. The other thing is just by being authentic. Don't be thinking about the end result, whether you're going to get any clients out of it or whatever. Be authentic. Be blessing the audience. How can you bless them? You want to make certain that at the end of the day, when they walk away, they say, that was worth my time. Time is so valuable. It's a precious commodity. We cannot get it back. And as speakers and podcast guests and even podcast hosts, well, actually yours isn't live, so you have it's still okay. But even so, a
Yeah.
person to listen to it, you want to make sure that they feel like their time was really valued. So it's really important that you do that. And then also remember to just acknowledge things as they come up. Okay, my dogs, I don't know if that's going to get cut out or not, but don't worry about it, because if it doesn't, then this is authentic. This is especially now, when we see BBC people who their wives are running in and pulling their kids out, right? We are in a different world than we were 2 years ago. We need to be authentic, and we need to be able to roll with the flow. And I liken it to the fact that when we go to the movies, and sometimes if we're really lucky, at the very end, they'll have a blooper reel. In that blooper reel is when we get to see that no one is perfect.
Yep.
These actors who are paid gazillions of dollars to speak and act and do their thing, they muck it up all the time. They just have a director that says, cut, scrap it, retake, take 239, right? So we need to think about that ourselves. And if we're doing a live in-person talk or live virtual, we don't have the ability to do that retake. So just acknowledge the elephant in the room. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. Or like me, I tangled my words. I know how to speak, but I get them tangled up sometimes. You don't let it deflate you. Don't let it distract you. Just be yourself, because that's who everybody is there to know and to meet. And they don't want a polished presentation. Yes, have a good presentation. Okay.
Yes.
Put time into it, but they don't want a polished presentation that's so slick that they don't feel like it's really you. You are just this actor, right?
Right.
So we don't want that.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more with that. And that would probably be the biggest piece of advice that I would have for people, is to just be authentic and just roll with whatever happens. People are not showing up expecting this super polished TED talk, or like I tell people all the time, I've helped several people start a podcast, and I tell them all the time, like, people are not coming to your show expecting this highly sophisticated NPR broadcast. They are looking for just a natural conversation. They want to feel like they're in the room with you, engaged in that conversation. And so like, if you mess up, if you say something wrong, if you stumble over your feet, roll with it, acknowledge it. It makes it so much more real. That, and it's endearing. I thought that's the word that I was looking for. And so, just being yourself. The last point I'll make on that, a lot of people have these preconceived notions about lawyers and how they're just like super stuffy and, very straightforward and, very serious all the time, or, kind of scary or intimidating or aggressive. But like, in the 7 years that I've been working with lawyers, that's absolutely not the case. They're real people. They have real personalities. And man, you get on the speaking circuit and you let that personality come through. That's going to break down so many barriers and get you so much farther ahead with potential clients that might want to work with you. That there's going to be so many just intangible benefits there that you may not even realize immediately off the front. So,
so true.
Yeah. Well, I think that those were all the questions that I had for you. But before we do wrap up, I had one last thing. And this is what we ask all of our guests here on Center Stage. And that is, if you had one last piece of advice for our listeners out there, what would it be?
I would say to do it, because so many people have a message and they don't get it out there because maybe they don't like public speaking. That's understandable. Okay. Or they don't feel like what they have is going to be of value to other people, or they just don't have the bandwidth to make it happen. And I get that, not forget the whole researching and booking process. I'm talking about just even showing up might be hard for people. Right. But the way I look at it is that if you have a message that is indeed of value to the world and you don't share it, you're doing the world a disservice. So if you can go at it from the viewpoint of, I've got something that needs to get out there. And so I'm going to do it for the other people.
Mm.
I'm going to stretch myself. It's uncomfortable. I'm a little short on time right now, but it really can make a difference. I would say do it. And in particular, when it's tied into business, there's just no way that it's not going to help. It's absolutely not, there's just no way, because people will relate to you and they'll tell other people about you as well. So there's just so many benefits. So I just say, just do it more than anything else.
Awesome. And for anyone out there who's interested in potentially working with you and getting your help getting booked for some speaking engagements, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, the easiest thing is just to go to my site. I actually have a thank you page where if they go in, it's just accessspeakers.biz/thank you. And if you go in there, you can just see a quick little video from me, because I believe in video. And then you can sign up to get my ebook, which is on using speaking to grow your business to generate influence, awareness, and clients. So that's one thing. The other thing is I highly recommend people consider coming to my free virtual monthly Q&A that I do. And it is so much fun. The best compliment I got from someone was saying that it was the most content-rich webinar he's ever attended. And
Wow.
that speaks volumes, because I'm not one of those people, by the way, that does the heavy pitches. So it's not going to be a pitch fest. Content. It's just a chance to pick the brain of a speaker's agent, come in with questions or listen to what other people ask. Plus, we have a drawing at the end. We do a little wheel of names, and I actually will pull someone's name and they will win a free speaker branding consultation with me. But there's no pressure on anything. Totally fun. Highly recommend it. It's the third Thursday of the month, and you can just get that from my site as well. Or if in your show notes, if you're able to drop that, I'll get that to you, and that would help too. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we'll have all that information in the show notes so that you can access that as well. And that is going to do it for us this week here on Center Stage. Continue to give us those ratings on Apple Podcasts, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're doing all kinds of stuff over there as well. And just follow us wherever you're consuming the show. We're in like 20 different places. We're all over the place. So that's going to do it for us this week. Anastasia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I so appreciate it. Have a great day.
All right, we'll see you later.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/center stage.